what we must do is first decide in where we want to be in 20, 30, 40 years' time. And then everyone must pull in the same direction. Without knowing where you want to go, you will never reach there. And if you're pulling in very different directions, then you will be at a standstill.
Welcome to another episode of the Brand New Day podcast. I'm your host, Zed Peace. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for subscribing, commenting, and supporting the podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Yusof Halim. Tuan, thank you for inviting us to your home.
You're most welcome.
Beautiful view of the Lumut Beach. I think there's something about nature and the sea that just makes you feel more relaxed, more at ease. Special thank you to my wife who arranged for this podcast. She was the one who arranged for Tuan Yusof to agree to the podcast, and I'm grateful. So Mr. Yusof Halim has been in the forefront of Brunei's law scene since 1988. He's an expert in litigation, civil law, Syariah law, and anything to do with the legal profession. On top of that, he also is the head of the Brunei Social Welfare Society, MKM, Majesty Kesejahteraan Masyarakat. We want to talk about his insights on how and what can be done to Brunei for us to progress as a nation and perhaps achieve the national goals that we want to achieve. In this episode specifically, we want to perhaps look at the legal landscape and how has it evolved throughout the years, which direction we need to go to, and what else needs to be done. So maybe we can start off with, we want to know your journey in the legal profession. What motivated you? What inspired you to become a lawyer in the first place, Tuan?
What motivated me to be a lawyer? Lawyer was my second choice. I said, look, I want to get to become something else. And only if I don't get to be that, then I want to be a lawyer. So I honestly wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Oh, wow.
But it didn't happen. That's a whole big chapter there why it didn't happen. Then I wanted to be a lawyer because I'm motivated by a sense of fair play in most things. And I think that fire in my belly to see fairness has made me decide that being a lawyer, litigating for what is called the downtrodden, is what I want to be. See, a society is only a good society. The measure for that is how you protect the weakest, how you champion their cause. That's where I get my urge to be a lawyer. And honestly, is from being a Muslim. Because a journey in Islam, a journey of a Muslim is always a journey of justice and fairness. If you read An-Nisa, which is chapter 4 of the Quran, verse 135, it says, it cannot put it on a better level. It says, be a witness for justice, even against your own parents, even against your own siblings. Now, how much higher can it be when equality and fairness transcends the love you must have for your parents? Because in Islam, heaven is below your mother.
Yeah.
But they say fairness is higher. The need to be fair, the need to do justice is higher. So that's really what motivated me from the day I wanted to be a lawyer until today.
I think from the 1980s, when you perhaps started in the profession, how have you seen the landscape evolve in terms of law and society in the country, in Brunei specifically?
Now, the greatest of the evolution, if you want to put it that, is locally produced lawyers. We started, in fact, in the 90s, I believe, by the then Vice Chancellor, the University of Brunei Darussalam. He wants to merge or change normal or conventional lawyers that I was to be more Sharia knowledgeable. So he formed this diploma, postgraduate diploma in Islamic Legal Studies, and I was in the first batch. Subsequent to that, I became a part-time lecturer in the same course, and then we started on the LLB degree in Brunei, now being operated in UNISA. From the time that started until today, we have produced about 480 graduates who can be called to the Sharia and the civil bar as lawyers. Now, that's the tremendous change in landscape. You must understand that we started in 1980s with about 20 lawyers.
Local.
In the whole of Brunei. Now we have 130 plus actually practicing in the civil courts. And you have about 30 practicing in the Sharia court. So that's a major shift of actually the number of people. Then you have the shift in the judicial landscape. When I was practicing, the High Court judges are mainly foreign judges. The Sharia court changed from Qadi court to become Sharia court. And Sharia courts are manned wholly by local judges. We had a generous base of foreign lawyers in Brunei to start with. More than half, in fact, the majority of private practitioners in Brunei then, in the 80s and 90s, were foreigners. Now, very few foreigners actually come into Brunei to practice, which is something natural to happen because you have your own base of local lawyers. I have more to speak on that because the change doesn't mean to forgo the old. Sometimes we old folks do have our good points. Now, that's the change in the personnels. That the law has evolved. We now have a fully equipped law in the Sharia side, and which runs alongside the normal law. So much need to be done, although much has been done.
Would you say there needs to be a balance between these two streams of civil law and Sharia? Or is there actually the converging point where they can go hand in hand?
They do go hand in hand. You must understand that the Sharia court system is not something which just formed with the Sharia courts. It started with the Qadi's court. And even prior to that, if you look at the judicial legal history of Brunei, Sharia law was being practiced, although there is no formalized system of Sharia courts. So it's not really something new, but unfortunately, what has happened with the coming of the British, the Sharia court became relegated to things of
Smaller, but
marriage and death. You only go there when you get married, you get divorced, or your children will go there after you die. So it get relegated to that. Now it has rightly come up, but what I feel is just don't do it because it is the right thing to do, but you got to do it right. Now, Brunei has many plus points. Okay, we got a stable economy, political situation is very stable, our utilities are quite cheap. So we got quite a few things going in favor of Brunei. What we must do is first decide in where we want to be in 20, 30, 40 years' time. And then everyone must pull in the same direction. Without knowing where you want to go, you will never reach there. And if you're pulling in very different directions, then you will be at a standstill. Why I say this? Let's bring it down to business situation. You are asking investors to come in. You have the huge, big, mega investors, which I shall not touch upon. They are different kettle of fish. But you have the average investors who come in, invest a few 100,000, a million, not the mega investors. Now, you want to encourage them too. Firstly, I like to be real. These investors are usually come at a young age. They build their career here. They have businesses. They are professionals, set up firms here. They have spent money and time in Brunei. But if you set up a firm here, you have to have a local name. Alibaba operation sprouts. Rent seekers are there. The government is trying to do something about that. But look at it from both sides, the local and the foreigner. The whole system must be revamped to protect both sides. We cannot pretend.
just want locals or just the investors.
Fine. We also must not pretend to look at a supermarket and just because it has a Malay name
on paper, yeah,
that it is actually not owned and run by foreigner. How do you protect both sides? Nobody going to open that kind of business. And at the age of 55 and 60, are told, look, you got to leave because your work permit is not going to be renewed. So you got to protect the locals as well. What happened if the foreigner leave and leave behind a huge amount of liability? Many locals have been brought to court because of this. Foreigner leaving and not submitting the income tax return. And the locals get called to court, get treated like a criminal and fined by the courts. Many of them are actually Alibaba in the sense that, look, they have an agreement with foreigners who actually runs a thing, then the foreigner either die or leave. Now, the local then is in a situation because they don't know anything about the firm and they cannot put in the returns. So they are the one who get taken to court and put to task. What is that space that will protect both locals and foreigners? I'm not saying I have the answer, But it's something that we must look into, and we must not pretend that that problem doesn't exist. We must not pretend that the person who is under labor quota as a manager of this company is not in fact the company. It's not in fact the person behind the company.
Yeah.
So protect both. Be open, be public, be transparent, and protect both sides. We must protect our locals, but we must have a system that is conducive for people to open up supermarket and spend $1 million to $2 million in this country. The government has now made it, I think, a very good move in differentiating the permanent resident who are stateless and the permanent resident who are not stateless. The permanent resident who are stateless are given the benefits almost equal to a citizen, which I think should be the case. They got nowhere else. And the permanent residents who have citizenship in another country are treated differently. They're not entitled to old age pension. They pay a different rate for the medical benefit. That is good. Why don't we think of something else? Why are we obsessed with permanent resident? Why are foreigners obsessed with having permanent resident? It's for one reason and one reason only. They want to continue to do business in Brunei. So why don't we have a different set of rules, change the Immigration Act to have business visa? So that if you are a foreign business, have a businessman having business concern in Brunei, having established a company, a restaurant, a supermarket, even a kedai runcit, you'd be very surprised that a kedai runcit is quite an expensive thing. It's not a $20,000-$30,000 operation. The assets they have are usually worth a few millions. You do not see it. You think, oh, it's kedai runcit. But why? These people will be happy enough if they have some sort of visa that will allow them to stay in Brunei and run their business. It makes no sense to them for them to spend all this money and then at the age of 55 and 60 are told, sorry, you have to leave. Yeah. It makes no sense. These are the happy medium that I think we must look at. We must protect the interests of our locals. At the same time, we must want to encourage the businesses coming. What you realize is that in order to grow, you must have a critical population base, a mass. Ask yourself, I've been in Brunei since 1980. How many local millionaires have Brunei produced? Countries now are counting how many billionaires they are making. Now, the more interesting question is why we are not producing them. There are many reasons for it, but one of the reasons will be our population base.
Yeah.
And we must have another look at it. How do we balance protecting our values, our cultures, our tradition, at the same time increasing our population base?
Do you think historically maybe this has a little bit of pushback perhaps from the Singapore experiment, where Singapore, during its independence, had an open door policy that allowed their population to grow?
The context is I am a former Singaporean.
Yeah.
I became a Brunei citizen. I've been a Brunei citizen from 2003. So that's 22 years of being a yellow IC, cup-bearing Brunei citizen. So I know a bit more, perhaps, from first experience of the Singapore experiment, the Singapore experience. Now, yes, Singapore opened its door post-independence, but more so later when they see that Singaporeans are not replacing themselves.
Mm.
Now, this is a worldwide problem. The young, like you, do not want more than 2 children usually. And what has happened in Singapore, many of them either only want one child or do not want children.
It's an expensive investment, one.
It is an expensive but joyful investment. If it's not joyful, you won't be here. So, but you see, then you go into the data available. The replacement rate for a country to replace itself, the fertility rate or replacement rate is 2.1. So that for every couple, husband and wife, they must have 2.1 children. Or to put it in another context, for 200 people, 100 men, 100 women married to each other, they must produce 210 children. Why to replace themselves? That's not to grow. Why 210? Because the course of nature, the problems of life, some children will not be around to be adults. The fertility rate for Brunei now is 1.76. We're not replacing ourselves. So if nothing is done, then the local population or the population in Brunei will shrink. Coupled with that, we, like a lot of countries, is hit by a second problem of an aging community. Now, Brunei is not so bad. Brunei average age or median age is 32. At 32, you're not so bad. So that's the average age of people in Brunei, 32 years old. But once you reach an average age of 40, you're in trouble community, troubled water. The other statistic you must look at is the population of senior citizens. Currently, 7% of the Brunei population are above the age of 65. And the projection is that in 2015, it will be 20% of the population will be above the age of 65. That poses a problem. A shrinking young population, an increasing old population, and a shrinking population as a whole. The Singapore experience, when they see this problem with the population, is to open up more in the 1990s. I think we have to do the same, but learn the lesson from Singapore. How do we do that? Opening up the country, but still preserving the benefits of being a Bruneian, still not destroying the social fabric of this country, the tradition, the culture, our ideology of MIB, that must be retained. So how do we do this?
It sounds like a balance where we need to bring in more people, but we still, as much as we can, preserve what we have at the moment.
It is. But you see, I started off by saying we can only reach where we want to go if we know where it is. So that's the first question. Where do you want to go? Now, the question is, do we have a choice? With a reducing population base, with an aging country, we are not an aging nation yet, but we will be there. Do we have a choice but to grow? I don't think we have. If we love our children and our grandchildren, we got to do something now so that our children, our grandchildren will have at least the same benefits that we have, if not more. So if we come to that conclusion that we do not have that alternative of not doing anything, then the next question is, okay, where we want to be, is that we need to sustain this nation as it is, or to improve on it, to grow it. But in order to do so, we must have the population base. Now, just to give the context, the study on Brunei says to be sustainable in Brunei, you must have a population of between 600 to 750,000. We are now at 450,000. So with 100,000 being foreigners.
Yeah.
The optimal population for Brunei, according to studies done, is 1 million. How do we reach there? Do we need to reclassify the kind of residences we have in Brunei so that those who come to invest feel a sense of belonging, but have certain guardrails so that Brunei will forever be for Bruneians?
During your whole time, during your career, has this issue, has it ever been discussed formally or thought about in terms of how do we reach 1 million as a population?
I don't think it has ever been talked about formally. There are discussed once in a while in a public situation, but I think it's more what people talk when they are concerned, especially when you're young and you're thinking and you have young children and you're thinking what is their life going to be. You have talked among friends. I'm sure there are talks behind closed doors. But I think this is a talk that needs a bit more light shine onto it, a bit more people engage into it. We need the opinions of people across the different age group and people across different careers they have chosen, those in the government, those in the private sectors, even those foreigners who have been here for a long time. And then forge something, a framework that will be the best module or model for us to reach where we want to be.
You think maybe this is where the legal landscape can come in to give that framework, that guideline for how things can actually be managed?
It will have to evolve the legal framework. If we are going to change who has a right to stay and do business here, then things like labor law, immigration laws need to be looked at. If we want more transparency and accountability, which if we do not have, we will not be able to attract businesses here or less businesses here.
I personally think these are valid discussions that should be talked about on a regular basis. And perhaps just as well for context, that His Majesty recently announced that there'll be 2 sittings for Legislative Council as opposed to just once a year.
I'm so glad about this. What I would like to happen is that there is a provision made somewhere for the public to send their questions or concern to the Legislative Council. What is happening now is that the young Berhormats go around and asking people of their concern. That's all and good. But maybe have a channel for people who have strong concern to put in their concern. But it must be a concern affecting the general public, not of themselves. Must be a concern that is not something that they should take up in court. So that this has to be talked about. I don't see any way forward. We must shine light on this so that we try to protect Brunei, at the same time grow it. It must be done.
Because for me, it will be consensus, whether you're in the private sector or whichever sector, to have at least 1 million people in a country. I think we've been stuck at 400,000 for decades, and it hasn't helped the economy grow.
This is a problem faced by many, many countries in the world. Singapore, at one time, want to curb its population. Then they have the Stop at 2 campaign. If you remember in the 60s and 70s, where they try to persuade people to stop at 2, children. As an amusement, as a side joke. See, when they have this Stop at 2 campaign, I still remember it. They also run a campaign, the Safe Electricity campaign. Now, as part of the Safe Electricity campaign, now this is a different world from the world you have now. We only have one TV channel that stop at 12 midnight. You do not have internet. You do not have handphones. So everybody were glued to their TV box. So as part of their Safe Electricity campaign, all TV program, or the only TV channel then, stop at 10 o'clock at night. Now, this is the classic situation where you're pushing and pulling at different direction. You have Stop at 2 campaign, you have Safe Electricity campaign, no TV after 10. No TV after 10 in the 70s. There's nothing more to do. 9 months later, they see that too many Singaporeans are giving birth. So now, the other thing I find of concern to me is that Brunei is a very government-centric country. Civil servant, those in the civil service, is a huge number. This then create this notion that you only have a good job if you are in the civil service. It's a challenge for private sector because of this mindset. Everybody want to work for the government. Now, I have about 100 employees under me. Aside from the 16 lawyers we have, that has about half of them are foreigners. Our local staff are almost 100% local. So it can be done, but it is a challenge. But my main concern is this. It's a government-centric nation. You look at the list of honors given every year. There is no special section for private sectors. There are people in the private sectors, Bruneians. And if you want to think about it, even not Bruneians, if you want to include them, who has set up business, professionals for years, giving employment to locals for years. They are never recognized. They are never given any medals. It is among the private sectors, people in private sector, there's a joke that no matter how well, how much you have done to give employment, your stature is lower than the clerical staff in the government who will get this medals and all that. Why is that? Why is that? Because when you do that, then you're not promoting the mindset that in the private sector it is also a good place to be. I think what needs to happen in Brunei is to change mindsets. And changing a mindset is not just by giving speeches. Changing mindset is actually to put in mechanism where private sector, NGOs, civil service are being recognized on equal footings. That must be done. So right now, I see an imbalance. Perhaps it's an imbalance which people do not see. You're very comfortable with what had always been the position.
It's understandable why we have this mindset all this time, because we see our parents, we see they've managed to long service work in government, and it goes down to their children who
Yes.
just carry forward this mindset. And perhaps until there's real examples where we can tangibly count and see that working in the private sector, you can actually go further and achieve more than perhaps working in the public sector, in government.
It's very true. You see, the benefits of working, doing this equation, this balancing, whether you want to work government or the private sector, it's not just necessarily dollars and cents. It's a sense of giving a sense of work-life balance. When I set up to do my firm in the 80s, not with this firm, the firm that I started with, there's a lot of talk. No, you can't get locals to work for you. We were then a 2-lawyer firm with 3 staff. I refused to believe in this. Because sometime in life, when you believe or you feel that failure is not an option, you'll find ways. Now I've grown. Oh, well, in size, of course, you can see. Came to Brunei, 70 kilos now. And now I'm a lot more than that. but I've grown from a 2 lawyers firm to a 15 lawyers firm. There are 100 staff. And the labor department actually give my firm an award for having 100% local staff. And my staff, from my firm, our turnover rate is so low, nobody wants to leave. Why is that so? We pay reasonable salary. That must be the start. You don't take people for a ride. Even before the implementation of minimum salary, we have our minimum salary. Our minimum salary in my firm is higher than even the current minimum salary which is proposed, which is what is going to govern us. But at the same time, it's having a work environment that makes you want to wake up in the morning and go to work. If you can create that environment, then the few extra dollars somebody else might dangle in front of you doesn't really work. So it has been challenging. I'm not saying that the 1980 until now, it has not been challenging. Were there dark patches? Were there frustrations in trying to do what you want to do? Yes, there were. But this is not just Brunei. This problem is not just Brunei. This is everywhere you go. There will be problems.
There will be challenges.
Yes, I like the word you use, because when my staff say there's a problem, I say, no, that's not a problem, that's a challenge. You see, the way you look at things just changes how you tackle it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Your work with the Brunei Council of Social Welfare, MKM, to me personally, it's inspiring to hear the success that you've achieved from the charity projects that you've done. I even remember being a guest rapper for one of the events that MKM sponsored, music concert in JP. I remembered in attendance, it was the people in need, or the children who are just excited to just attend the concert. Can you tell us more about maybe how do you see the welfare situation currently in Brunei? Is it a prominent problem that we have?
Everything is relative, isn't it? If you ask me how is the problem in Brunei, then I will ask, compared to what? Compared to the people in Gaza, then we are in heaven. I always say, do not measure. If you're a wave in the ocean, never measure yourself with another wave. Measure yourself with the depth of the ocean. So what it means is this. What it means is, yeah, we are good in Brunei. The question is, can we be better? And that's the question. So because that's the question you pose, then there'll never be a situation where you are happy that you have done your best. I'm inspired by Sayyidina Omar. In one of the stories, he goes around and see what his citizens are up to. He say, how can I be happy when my citizens are wanting? And I think this is the same for all of us. You see, you started a question on why I want to be a lawyer. I said one of the main reasons is I want to be a Muslim because I'm a Muslim. One of the reasons you have to help others, and it's not kindness really; it is a duty because you're Muslim. How will you and me? We will surely die. It's only a matter of time. How will we answer to God when the question will be posed to us? When people are suffering around you, what did you do? And you see, I have this feeling when the Rohingya problem happens. That was in 2017, the latest one. And people were posting pictures in social media. People were liking, I say, okay, I like this, I like that in social media. What does it do? Can I, when asked before God, when these people were suffering, and I choose my word very selectively, people, human, were suffering. What did you do? And are you going to say, well, I like their photos in social media?
Of course.
So that's where the charity, my urge to do charity is. Your question is there a need? Interesting because when I or my officers in MKM attend regional and sometimes international events for charities, and when we say that we are a charity organization from Brunei, everybody will be looking at us, a charity organization helping the needy in Brunei. So people fall through cracks, no matter how good we are. I like the current president of Singapore, Mr. Taman. When he was a minister, was asked the question, I'm paraphrasing, he was asked, do you accept that even in Singapore, people fall through the cracks? They say in every community, in every society, people will fall through the cracks, even in the best of us, in the best of communities. Then the question was asked, do you provide safety nets for people who fall through the cracks? What he said, we not only provide safety nets, we provide trampoline so that they can escape the cracks. And relating it back to your question, we have people who falls through the cracks, breadwinners who died, breadwinners who get arrested, leaving behind a family, people with special need children. Mother cannot work and father's income is not sufficient. So there will always be people who had fallen between in the cracks. So there's always be a need for NGOs to help this. You see, in the early 80s, when Brunei reached independence in 84, we then have a ministerial form of governance that took over from what was prior to that, which is the Chief Minister and the Secretary of State. Then you got high-ranking government officers, ministers, their spouses are very much involved in NGOs. It is not where it was. Remember, when you are given extra by God, you're expected to give back extra. You're not, I have led a blessed life. Me and my wife, we had challenges, but we had led a blessed life. And can we say that we are special because God gave us this blessed life without asking for anything back? The question I will ask, and every one of us will be asked, and will have to answer, okay, I've given you extra wealth. I've given you extra intelligence. What have you done in my cause? So I want to reach out to people. Do not see charity as an act of kindness. See charity as a mandatory thing, a very selfish thing, because otherwise, how will you answer the questions that you surely will be asked?
Fully agree, Tuan. I think when it comes to Brunei as a society, perhaps we have people who are very generous, who, when it comes to donations, and that's the culture that we aspire to be. Kalau di masjid, you would have a father who would give the son money.
Yes.
So the son would be the one donating.
Exactly. What I want to add is this. I'm the current president of MKM, which just had its 15th anniversary. We have continuous projects every day. We run a school for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. How did we afford to do that? It's the Brunei people.
Wow.
The Brunei people are so generous that sometimes they are abused. So when they know you are honest, you have integrity, getting money from the Brunei people for a worthy cause, it's not a problem. But what I want is to see more people coming up to the challenge and say, okay, there are things that can be done. I've been a civil servant. I've been in the private sector. I'm now in the 60s. Instead of taking up my MBA, which my friends say that most of them are doing now, MBA meaning menjaga bini dan anak. Do something other than that. Give back. Give back. You give back because you will be questioned. You will be asked.
In conjunction with Ramadan as well, I think all the points that you shared, it to motivate us, not just in the sense of our career, thriving in our businesses, but also in terms of us as Muslims, as a human being as well. I think your journey, Tuan, is inspiring in that sense that we're now at your beautiful home and getting to hear all the advice that you're sharing to us. Is there anything that perhaps you want to advise the younger population? What else can we do as a nation, as a community? What else can we strive for moving forward?
Before I get there, can I tell a small part of my story? Maybe it will benefit people.
Okay.
You see, I came to Brunei late 1980 when I was a Singapore police officer. I met this wonderful Brunei lady and I came to Brunei. Then I decided, I was running, I became an insurance branch manager, but to have any form of promotion, I will need to be sent abroad. They're thinking of sending me to Guam. Me and my wife were not ready for that. So I decided to be a lawyer, which is my second career choice. We didn't have money. But we went anyway. I went on my wife's salary. In 1984, we had a massive salary increment for government officers. So my wife used that money to start me off in my legal as a law undergrad in London. But there were so many challenges because we didn't have enough money giving tuition. I remember coming back after my second year, we have run out of money. Getting loans were not easy then. We have run out of money, and I told my wife, look, never mind, we save some more. When we have more money, I will complete my education. But when I came back and saw my exam results, I said, I need to go back. Because I think God have answered my prayer. Because my result were quite good, and I won the university prize. So it was free for me, third year and part of my bar year. Then I started my career. What keeps me going? What keeps me going is that failure is never an option. Me failing would mean my children will go without. So that was never an option. I was doing what I can to succeed and to get more income. I was selling, if you remember those days, in mid to late 80s, the life in Brunei was coming back from work and then go to rent movie in the form of VHS. So I was selling blank VHS. You see, when I want to feed my children, nothing is embarrassing to me. If it means I go and sell VHS, my wife used to sell kuih, we'll do that. But why? The driving force is that failure is a disaster for my family. If you have that in your belly, that fire in your belly, I'm not going to fail. I will do all I can. I will have all my doa. But my usaha is equally important, if not more important than my doa. Then you may not get to the place you want to be, but you'll get to a place which will be good for you.
Fully agree, Tuan. I think from my last podcast with Malay Hassan, he summarized it as you need these 4 components, which is an acronym for do it.
Yes.
Doa, usaha tu mesti ada iltizam, kesungguhan kan. Kemudian tawakal pada Allah. Serahkan pada Allah saja.
Inshallah.
I have on the wall there, what drives me. This is the 114 chapters of the Quran.
Oh.
Okay? You see, God has given you that user manual. Sometimes we read without understanding. Let's try to understand and be guided by the manual God has given us. Be fair, strive, do your best. I remember a hadith where our Prophet ﷺ saw people doa in the masjid regularly. What did he do? He chased them out. He said, doa alone will get you nowhere. Go out and do usaha. So, everything in life, religion, work, life balance, everything is a balance. We Muslim believe that this is just a journey. I'm closing in on to be 70 soon. Average age for male in Brunei is 75. So in about 5 over years, I'll probably not be around. So, but we believe in that. We believe this is a journey. We are reaching to another plane. What we have, you say a beautiful house. Firstly, it's not my house. I don't have any property. I'm a poor guy. This is my daughter's.
Oh, okay.
Or at least it's in her name. She can kick me out tomorrow. But these are temporary things. If you have that in your heart and mind, and if you have in your heart and mind that the life you have here is to do your best in everything you have to do, including helping others, then it will be a joyous journey. And Ramadan is a time to reflect, time to have this ongoing battle. See, the ongoing battle, I think we always have, we must have, is the ongoing battle of our own ego. Because we like to think that we are special. Yusof Halim, well-known lawyer. Nah, not really. Tomorrow I'll die. None of us is special. We are responsible for what we do and what we don't do. If that sinks in, it will help not only us, our family, it will help the nation. Because our outlook in life will be very different. Our life is not just for ourselves. It's not just to get a huge salary, big cars, big house, and not shed a tear for somebody who got less from us. We are given more, we got to give more.
That summarizes quite well in terms of the journey that you went through as well. I think when it comes to success, the younger generation has a skewed way of viewing success. As you mentioned, it's the cars, it's your salary. But when you really reflect when you really reflect on those who have achieved success, life can actually be quite simple if you really think about it. You're here today, you might be gone the next day. What can you do in that space of time, in that short space of time?
We like to put in trappings which are not necessary. We like to put in trappings that we will only be happy when this happen or if this happen. I had several months back a chat with an elderly relative. He used to be very, very rich. He's no longer very rich, but he has this mentality: people will respect me when I become richer. To those with this mindset, I say you're short selling yourself. Be happy regardless. When you get what you get, you may not be happy. Me and my wife, a bit of personal digression. We were nobodies. We don't have any background. We were inspired by this 70s song by Neil Sedaka, The Hungry Years. It talks about a journey of a couple from poverty till wealth, huge amount of wealth. At the end of the journey, what they say, getting the wealth was not the happiness. The journey was. The journey was. And the journey will end. For many of us, your Bentley, your Porsche, your Mercedes will not go with you. But hopefully when you're no longer around, somebody will remember, hey, that Yusof Halim, not such a bad guy. That is happiness enough, isn't it? That's life.
So thank you, Tuan, for sharing all your insight and wisdom from your career in the legal profession, the charity work that you do, the guidance that you can give us as the younger generation. I think hopefully for the viewers, this will be of benefit for you to share. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment, follow Tuan Halim. I think he's starting a TikTok page for the younger generation.
No, but I've just started 3 weeks ago because I'm giving talks on law, on harta pusaka. Then people is telling me, why don't I go on TikTok? I have no clue. So I've started a TikTok where I talk about law, about justice, about fairness. This is called Brunei.logical. Logical is spelled Lewgical. Join me.
We'll put the link in the page below. So that was the Brand New Day podcast. Thank you to Tuan Yusof Halim for inviting us and joining the podcast. And we hope to catch you soon.
Inshallah. Thank you for having me.
And that's the Brand New Day podcast. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.